All right, everybody. Always a struggle stream. Come on in, everybody. Come on in. Happy Saturday. Thank you all so much for being here. Welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk with Maggie and Lucy, where we believe the older women should teach the young. I am Maggie, the substitute teacher, and together with Lucy, we make content and courses prioritizing marriage and family, especially for the young women in their prime. So if that's of interest to you, maybe you can learn something here. So Lucy, please introduce yourself and let us know what are we reacting to today.
Hello, Maggie. Hello, everyone. Yes, I'm Lucy. I have a small channel. Usually, the content is femininity, elegance, and things that impact women over a certain age. And thinking about young women and marrying and just keeping healthy relationships, I think this topic is a really good one. I think it's either finding the right one or do not marry crazy. Again, I sent it to you the minute I saw it. I'm we reacting to it. I haven't watched it. I just watched the beginning, and then I said, Maggie, maybe this one is good. So I don't know what's in it. I apologize if there's anything that it's inappropriate in any way. Again, we're going to react to it together, and I think it's going to be an interesting one this time.
Absolutely, everybody. So let me give you your two disclaimers and then we're going to go ahead and get started. We see you all coming in on the chat. So this video is called 5 Steps to Know She's the One. And yes, the thumbnail says don't marry crazy. So this is a new channel to me. Lucy sent this one over. This is Nick Freitas. Anyway, it's about a 30-minute video. We will play and pause and give you all our commentary. If you want to watch it without an interruption, the link is always in the description on Facebook and YouTube. And again, our content is not for everyone. We believe that marriage and family should be prioritized, ladies, when we are in our prime. So if that's what you're interested in, you're welcome here. If not, that's totally fine. You just may not be happy over here. So thank you all. Oh, Discipled One says Nick is a solid guy. All right, let's go ahead and go in and mute myself and share my screen.
Marrying crazy. I've been asked this question a lot, actually. In fact, I've had some people tell me that I just got lucky with respect to who I married because, after all, I grew up in a broken home. My wife grew up in a broken home. I was 19 when I got married. We immediately went into a profession where the infidelity and divorce rates are incredibly high. Out of the first 10 years of our marriage, I spent about 50% of it away from home. We went through several moves, which is considered one of the more stressful things on a marriage. By the way, the other stressful thing on a marriage is financial issues, and we had them, especially the first few years of our marriage. And yet, 25 years later, we're still in love. We're still married. We have 3 kids who so far are doing really, really good. One of them is now married. One of them is about to leave the house as they just graduated. And the other is on track to accomplish her goals, both educationally and occupationally. So, here's the real question. How does that work? Right? Because when you get married at 19 and you go into an environment where all those problems exist and you came from a background where, let's just say, the ideal marital relationships were not modeled for you, it seems like you should have failed. I mean, we literally had people at our wedding betting on whether or not we'd get divorced. In fact, some of them were just betting on how long it would take. And crazy enough, they're now divorced and we're still married and going strong. But here's the deal. It wasn't luck. Anybody that tells you that's luck is probably full of crap or just engaging in cope for their own failed relationships. The bottom line is there's actually some pretty simple rules to follow that will help you ensure that your marriage lasts. It's not a guarantee. Things can still go wrong. Bad things can happen. But I don't know. Take it from someone that's 25 years into this and really happy in my marriage. It's absolutely possible. So here's 5 things to consider. All right. The number one thing is shared values. Now, there's a lot of other categories within a marriage that are important, right? Goals, interest, attraction, right? All that's important. I'm going to talk about all of it. The reason why I say values are the most important is because it is the foundation upon which everything else is built. You can have all the shared interests and all the physical attraction in the world, but if you guys have completely different ways of viewing the world, of concepts of right and wrong, or concepts of truth, you're going to have some real problems. I guarantee you the first time you get into some sort of argument, and you will, if all of a sudden you find that the person that you're arguing with doesn't believe in objective truth, there's just your truth or my truth. What you're going to find is that they want to evade facts and reality whenever it suits them in order to get what they want. So ensuring that both of you have a firm foundation and shared values is absolutely critical, right? So for my wife and I, it was very simple. We shared the same faith. Now, what does that mean? It means there was a standard for objective truth, objective morality, and certain roles and responsibilities that each of us would play within our marriage. And what that meant is that if I violated those rules, I couldn't just dismiss them because I felt like it, or I couldn't just say, well, I'm the man of the house, so we're going to do it this way. She could appeal to those values in order to bring correction for me. I could do the same thing for her. It was a two-way street. This is really important because you got a lot of guys that'll tell you things like, well, happy wife, happy life. Just don't argue with your wife. She's always right. No, she isn't. And I'm going to get to that a little bit later as well. But understand that if you don't both have some sort of shared value system, which is objective and exists outside of the marriage, that both of you can appeal to in times of frustration or decision-making or whatnot, you're going to find out really quick that you end up just fighting about competing interests or opinions or points of view, as opposed to trying to get to something that's true and concrete. So having that is not some sort of a oppressive way to control your marriage. Having that is actually a very freeing thing, because when you have those shared values, when you are committed to one another, when you believe that marriage is supposed to be for life, and you're both committed to that belief, what ends up happening is that you're able to have real conversations. You're able to actually work through things in ways that might cause a different marriage to completely break apart. So I can't emphasize this enough. If you don't have a shared worldview, a shared set of values, a set of objective values that both of you can appeal to, and that both of you think have legitimate authority over the way that you guys conduct yourselves, you're probably going to run into, well, a lot of problems. When you are looking for someone that you actually want to marry, you need to first go into the places and look for the sort of values that you want. But what that also means is you need to reflect those values. Because if you're looking for someone in that space, chances are they're looking for someone as well. What that means is that you have to live up to the same standards that you would like the person that you're going to marry to live up to. So if you're not worthy of her or you're not worthy of him, don't be surprised when they don't find you attractive, especially when they're placing values first, because that's someone that's actually serious about setting up a long-term relationship and building both a marriage and a family with someone that is going to be in it for the long haul. All right, number 2 is share.
That was so good. I want to unpack that one. I have a lot of thoughts on this one. He said a lot. And of course, we like to hear what you all have to say in the chat. So he's going to give us 5 things to know if that other person is the one. And I'm just thinking about the class that Lucy and I just taught for the wife lessons. And one of the things that we told the ladies is that if you are marriage minded, being in a marriage, and you have to get to marriage, you have to get engaged, you have to get to relationship, but there has to be a common goal, a common purpose, the reason why we are coming together. Because, like I told the ladies in the class, fortunately or unfortunately, this modern world that we live in, a man doesn't have to marry you to have access to you. That's how it used to be. He can have time with you. He can be intimate with you. He can spend money on you. The way men look at it is, I don't really have to marry you to do all the things. So there's a reason that they would take that extra step and go to marriage. And usually it's to build something. And your job is to know what that something is that he wants, to build something in the family unit that he can't do on his own. But before we even get to that shared values thing is so important, ladies. I say, we told the ladies too, you have to be a wife before you're married. You have to be a mother before you have children. So what are your values? What are your non-negotiables? You may hear others say, what are your deal breakers? I see a lot of women just kind of existing, like we'll figure it out when we get there. That's not enough, because if you don't have a moral core, if honesty is not important to you, if you can kind of tell your version of it, you can lie a little bit. I had someone tell me who was lying about her age. Oh, I just switched the numbers around. You just switch the numbers around. But yet this person wants an upstanding man who has built something of himself. So ladies, if you don't know what is important to you, and it's not everything, and something that's important to you may not be important to someone else, but like he said, that is what's going to carry you when the times are hard. Because if you're looking for marriage, if you're looking for long term, every day is not going to be a great day. We're not going to live in this la la Disney fantasy land that we're going to love each other and like each other every day. Some days we won't. But that's why, like we told the ladies in the course, you have to remember, why did I choose him? Why did he choose me? What is the reason that we are together? Because sometimes you need to focus on that and not on how you feel. And if you don't know the reason why you chose to be together, the reason that you said, you know what? I believe that the husband is the leader and I as the wife am the support system. And that is the best way that I can show up in this marriage. If you're just kind of like, you know what, maybe I'm a boss babe, but I want the option to not work and I'm just going to kind of do whatever I feel day to day, it's doomed to fail. So I really like what he said about those values. You have to know what yours are and they have to be common. The last thing I'll say is this. Did you hear him at the end when he said, a man can dismiss you or not choose you, even if he's attracted to you, if your values are not the same? So this is where we see a lot of pretty women get confused because they think, but I look good, but look at me in this dress. My waist is snatched, my hair is laid and all of this stuff. And he says, you don't respect money. I work really hard for what I provide for, and you think money just grows on trees. So at his moral core, he really is disciplined when it comes to finances. And you're just one of those, oh, we got it, so let's spend it. So even if he is attracted to you, he will not choose you because your values are different. So young ladies especially, this is why dating has to be for the intent of marriage, if that's what you want. You have to look at some of these unfun and more serious compatibility issues in the beginning, because you can just find yourself hanging out with somebody that you like. And he knew from day one, I can't take her nowhere. You can't trust her around anybody. She's not reliable. She's not trustworthy. She's not honest. So he will entertain you, but he will never choose you. What would you add, Lucy?
I agree. And it's the way I see it is kind of those value systems are like the root to that tree. If that man says that those values are just superficial, he knows that later on that tree is going to fall over. You're not going to be a well-established person that's going to be taking that marriage seriously. And when things get hard, he knows that those values are there, he knows that the good, the bad, and the ugly, you're still going to be there now until forever, rather than, okay, if something doesn't work out, oh, okay, well, then maybe we'll just get a divorce. We have an argument. Okay, then, I'll just, bail out because it's not doing it for me. So again, and that's what one of the things that dating does right now is the man is looking and is testing to see what are your core values. Is it something that she's willing to just move like a sailboat? If you go here, I go here, but then maybe not. Or does she have a well-established belief that this is how things are going to be, and that's how they're going to stay? So I think that is a really good point that he makes. Do you have shared values, and do you feel strongly enough that it will take you through the hardships of marriage, hardships of a relationship? And it's funny because you see all these women saying, I have 3, 4, 5 engagement rings, but that shows you that the man saw that those shared values were not there. And they said, I'd rather her keep those, engagement rings, and I'll bail out because I know that later on she's going to be trouble.
So true. Let's see what you all are saying in the chat, and then we'll go in for number two. Discipled One says, we're preaching already. Jurgen says, that's what the concept of reality is for. Yes, ladies, we got to come out of the clouds. What matters? Who are you really? That's what the men want to know. And Discipled One says, why did I choose him? Ouch. Get the antiseptic. The accountability stung on that one. Yes, ladies, you know me. I always say, ask yourself, why are you choosing this man? That's what I told the ladies in the class. Is it just because you like the way he looks? Is it just because, like someone I just talked to said, well, he looks good on paper? Is it because, he's my permanent plus one? Why? Why are you here? All right. Let's go back in for number two.
Shared goals and expectations. What do I mean by this? Goals have to do with what are the things that you want to get out of life, right? What's your impression with respect to professional goals or various goals that you might have with the size of your family or where you might like to live or what kind of lifestyle that you would like, right? These are all goals to discuss. And you should really differentiate between goals which are nice to have and goals which might be deal breakers. The other thing is expectations. Now, with expectations, a big part of what I mean here is what are your actual expectations for what you're going to do as a husband or a wife, as a father or a mother? What do you expect out of the other one, and what do they expect out of you? And articulating and discussing that and being honest about it is really important. Now, I will say this about life goals. There's certain things that might seem really important early on, and maybe they are, but be careful on what things you set up as absolute deal breakers. I had a goal to go in the military, and I did. But I can tell you right now that if it had come down to a situation where my wife was just absolutely miserable in the military, it was more important for me to be married to her than it was to serve in the military. And so understand that it's fine to talk about things that are important. It's fine to talk about things that might even be really necessary as part of your overall life plan, but don't be too harsh on the deal breakers. Deal breakers should really be focused more on the values rather than goals. On the expectations side, it is so important that you have honest conversations about what you expect. Now, the values answers some of these questions, but you need to go into a little bit more detail. And honestly, it's kind of fun to do. My wife and I started talking about things like, okay, if we were to get married, what would you expect my role to be as the husband? Right? And what do I expect my role to be as the husband? So I came up with obvious things. I need to protect. I need to provide. I should be the one that is making enough money to where if you don't want to work outside the home when we start having kids or whatever it might be, you don't have to. And so I'm setting my professional aspirations around that particular goal, right? She also articulated her expectations. And lo and behold, it turns out that she wanted to work outside the home until we had kids. And then she wanted the option. She didn't want our overall lifestyle choices to be so dedicated on two incomes that if she wanted to stay home and really direct the management of the household and the education of the children, that she wouldn't be able to do that. And so we decided to set professional goals that would allow us to do that with the understanding that it was going to include some sacrifices. The reason why that's such an important conversation to have is because the vast majority of couples will at some time begin to have children. And when children come, that changes a lot of things. And if you haven't set the proper expectations, not just with what you would like to do with your kids, but the potential impact that will have on whatever your current lifestyle and budgeting is, you're probably going to run into problems. Because it's one thing to say, hey, it would be nice to be able to stay home with the kids. It's another thing to say, I want to do that, but I don't want there to be any lifestyle changes as a result. That's not a reasonable expectation. And that's actually one of the reasons why you talk about expectations, is that you're kind of low key determining whether or not the other person is being reasonable with you. One of the things I want to say right off the bat is that there's a popular kind of feminist trope that wives and mothers do most of the unpaid labor. Okay, well, it might be unpaid, but it's not uncompensated. Not to mention the fact that it is an unreasonable expectation to expect the man to work 40, 50, and 60 hours a week outside the home in order to bring in all the money and then come home and equally share all the responsibilities with either the raising of children or the maintenance of the home. Not to mention the fact that I actually don't think this is a good setup. It is important for each person within the relationship to have duties and responsibilities for which they are the one that is primarily responsible and essentially in charge of it. So if I'm at work, Tina doesn't call me up and tell me how she thinks I should be doing stuff. By the same token, I don't get home and try to micromanage how Tina runs the house. We each have our respective domains. Now, again, this doesn't mean you don't have any responsibilities. When I get home, I still want to help my wife with the house. I still want to help with raising the children because they are my kids as well. But by setting up the proper expectations and articulating what we think those roles and responsibilities will be, we can actually work together toward a common goal while respecting the various domains that somebody plays the primary role versus somebody playing the secondary role. And I can't even tell you how important those conversations are, because even if you have shared values, even if you have shared goals, if you guys have vastly different views for how a household should run and what should be the roles of husband, wife, father, mother, I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to butt heads a lot. And some of those may be irreconcilable differences. And the solution might be that, hey, you guys are really good friends, but you're not suited to be husband and wife. And just respect that and move on. But you will find that the more you have those discussions about expectations, the more likely you are to find someone that really does share not only your values, but an idea of what a marriage and a family will look like. And that's someone that you're going to be able to work through a lot of challenges with in order to create something pretty incredible. All right, shared interests.
Oh, that was really good. I'm liking each one of these to let them play out. And I'm just thinking about how I can give you all a tangible example. So his number 2 is to have shared goals and expectations. And I love the word expectations because, ladies, I'm going to rip the Band-Aid off. We talked about this in our wife class. If you are going to be in a relationship, there are expectations of you. And just showing up and looking cute is not enough. So you need to know what that man, he's asking you to be his for a reason, to do something. And you need to know what that doing something is. So I was thinking as he was talking, so his first tip was to make sure you have shared values. An example of shared values is, I believe in honesty. You believe in honesty. I believe in honesty. We're not going to lie. We're not going to sugarcoat it. We're not going to white lie. We're not going to tap dance around the truth. We're going to be honest with each other. That's great. Add on top of that, let's say we both have shared goals. We have a goal that by 55, want to retire and travel the world. Great goal if you can make it happen. We have the same goal, same values, same goal. Expectations. What if the man expects, oh, this is going to be a 50-50 relationship. I'm going to work. You're going to work. We're going to split all the bills 50-50. And then we're going to work and we're going to go all the way until 55. And then we'll travel the world together. The wife is thinking, I don't want 50-50. I want to be able to stay at home when we have kids. Maybe we have to downsize a little bit. But I want the option to work. I'll work as long as, the kids are in school, but I don't want to have to be bringing in exactly what you bring in. So we have the same values. We're honest with each other. We both have a goal that we don't want to work until 65. We want to wrap it up at 55, but we have vastly different expectations of each other. And this is what I mean, ladies, when I say doesn't make the other person a bad person. But in this case, these two are not compatible. And like he said, maybe that means we're better off friends. So this is why I tell you, and I'm on my soapbox and I'm howling at the moon, the purpose of dating is to see if this is a suitable match for marriage or long term. You all who are just out here dating to get dressed up, to go eat somewhere or put a picture on Instagram or because you're bored on the weekend, ladies, especially young ladies, you are wasting time that you don't have to waste because there is no guarantee that it's going to be a match. And this is why I look side eyes at these ladies that have engagement rings like infinity stones. What were you doing? Were you vetting like he was vetting you? And a lot of times, ladies, sometimes it could be a great guy, but we're not for each other. I'm not good for him or he's not good for me. So this to me is a great example of you can have the same values. You can have the same goals, but if you aren't aligned on the expectations of what a husband is going to be in the relationship and what a wife is going to be in the relationship, you're always going to be at each other. And who wants to come home to that every day? So hopefully that was helpful. That's what I was thinking when he was talking about, are your goals and expectations of each other aligned? What would you add, Lucy?
I don't think I have anything to add. That was a great analogy, great, description on, what are the things that will make a relationship work, and what are the things that you both really need to talk about to see whether you are willing to take on those responsibilities, because marriage is a huge responsibility, and it will require sacrifice, it will require patience, it will require just grace from each other. So again, that is a very, very good example and tangible explanation on why two things could be working, and there's that one thing that you don't agree on, and that's probably what's going to allow the relationship to just fade away into a friendship.
Yeah, I see what you all are saying in the chat, and thank you for that, Lucy. Jurgen says men and women really can't be friends. Red Bunny says not the Infinity Stones. Y'all say I'm cooking. Condemned says these are in fact much needed conversations before considering taking someone serious. And again, ladies, we believe in prioritizing marriage and family in your prime. So, I do hope this is helpful. Lucy and I have a heart to reach the young ladies. We just had one in our marriage class that said, I wish, she's 31 now and engaged, but she said out of her own mouth, I wish I had prioritized it in my 20s. Where would I be now? And I'm so grateful that she was honest with us, but it kind of broke me. How many women are just kind of believing the lie that you can do whatever you want to do for as long as you want to do it. So again, some tangible things. Ladies, when you're spending time, of course, have fun at the meal or bowling or going for a walk in the park or whatever, but this needs to be part of the conversation. And I'm not talking about firing squad, interrogating him, but you need to understand, what does day to day look like for him? And can you see yourself fitting into his life, and what role does he want you to play there? Because people don't talk to each other anymore, and it's just kind of like, well, I just thought it would work. Or you hear people say, well, it didn't work out. What does that mean? Usually there's a reason, and you don't owe an explanation to anybody, but you need to be crystal clear on what you want, what you're asking for. And if you heard him, he said what you can offer, because it's really important that you are honest with yourself about, yeah, I can do that. And good and well you can't. Let's go into number 3.
How important is this? Well, I think it's relatively important. Here's what I mean by that. My wife and I had established that we had shared values and we had a lot of shared expectations and some shared goals. And so the real question was there anything else that kind of united us with respect to hobbies or things we like to do? And what we found is there were some, right? We both had an interest in discussion and debate and talking about important issues, whether it was philosophical or historical or theological, right? We enjoyed that intellectual, back and forth with one another, which was really important, because what it demonstrated is that beyond things like physical attraction or maybe just recreational hobbies, we genuinely enjoyed talking about important things with one another. And that in and of itself was an interest. Now, when it comes to more recreational things, I can tell you this. My wife has always liked to do things like jet ski, water ski. She likes some of the outdoor water sports. I never really grew up doing that, but I certainly didn't mind learning, and I enjoyed it as well. Now, is that something we do all the time? No. In fact, it's somewhat far and few between, but it was something that we both enjoyed doing together. By the same token, I love studying history. Did Tina ever really get into that? Not really, but there's occasional things that she does find interesting, and so we'll watch things together. So the thing I would tell you is that as long as you have an interest with that other person that goes beyond, again, the mere physical or recreational, as long as you actually have kind of a deep intellectual interest in the other person, you're going to be shocked at what you end up liking to do later on, simply because it provides you an opportunity to have a deeper relationship with that person. And the next thing you know, their interest becomes yours, your interest becomes theirs. So yes, have some shared interests, but here's one thing I want you to be wary of. A lot of times people confuse an interest or a shared hobby with an actual relationship. You actually see this causing problems sometimes with work relationships and things of that nature, where two people get thrown together on a particular project, and because they have to focus so much on this shared objective, they confuse that for an actual relationship and only end up finding out later that outside of whatever the project was, they just didn't have a lot in common when it came to things like values or expectations. So avoid trying to build a relationship exclusively off of an interest. Maybe you both like going to the gym together. Maybe you both like snowboarding. Maybe you both like whatever. But if you don't have kind of an intense personal and intellectual connection with that person, I promise you the interest is not going to be enough to save the relationship or let it flourish into something that you really want. So, main takeaway from this is you don't have to have the exact same interest. But if there's literally nothing you both enjoy, that's probably a problem. Part 4, you got to be able to effectively communicate. And part of what I
Oh my gosh, he is ripping and running. I love this. This is a good one, Lucy. I'm listening to him and I'm trying to think about ways or different real life examples where this can really hit home. So he talked about shared interests, and I agree with one very small exception. I'm not going to say correction because I agree with him and I wouldn't correct a man. Ladies, it is important that we have some shared interests, but we cannot and should not expect our man to be interested in everything we want to do. And we should be okay not understanding or being interested in all of the things that he wants to do. Yes, there should be, I'm thinking of, okay, the nerd in me, concentric circles or the Venn diagram, whatever the diagram is, where you have the ball over here, and then there's the part where they overlap. Y'all know what it's called. That's where my mind was going. So you're going to have some things in your sphere, some things you may do by yourself, some things you may do with your girlfriends, or, whatever it is, as long as it's wholesome and honors your relationship. He's going to have some things that he does over here, maybe with the fellas, maybe on his own. Allow him. All right. We talked about this in the wife class. He's not necessarily your bestie. Could he be your best friend? Yes. But ladies, I don't want you dragging your man for mimosas and brunches and mani-pedis and all this stuff. How happy or unhappy would you be if he said, let's go to the car show or let's go fishing? Y'all know me and animals. Maybe you all like to do everything together. That's great. But usually there are some things that we want to do that they don't. They want to do that we don't. So allow that, and don't be pouting if he doesn't want to come with you to, whatever rom-com is playing. But that concentric, you know what I'm talking about, that part in the middle, you should be able to enjoy some things together. And whatever that thing is, or whatever those things are, that's totally up to you. This is why, and no, I don't have a lot of dating advice. I'm married young, but when I tell women, do the things that you already like doing. One of the places that you can go, if you have an interest, if you have a hobby, if you like the arts, someone was telling me, oh, I want to travel. I said, well, join a travel group. Well, I want to go with my guy. You don't have a guy yet. Why do I say that? Because it's going to put you in spaces where you're already comfortable, where you're already semi-knowledgeable about that thing. Then when you strike a conversation with somebody, you already have some type of shared interest that you can build from there. Because, like I said, you're going to have other things that you want to do away from each other. But the thing that he said that just really blew me away, don't mistake that shared interest for a real relationship. How many of y'all think you're in a real relationship because we Netflix and chill together? How many of you all talk to women all the time that have made up relationships? There's a man that they work with or a man that they see every day, in the grocery store or whatever. And in their mind, he's perfect for them, but you just happen to be in proximity, or like he said, happen to be working on a project together, or happen to have physical chemistry together, but there's really no interest, which I would not recommend. But some of y'all are just jumping in so fast that thing is just fireworks, and you mistake that for a real relationship. But you don't have any values that are shared. You don't have any goals that are shared. You don't know what the other person expects of each other. And you're not really interested in anything else except for the temporary time that you spend together. So I thought that was really fascinating. What would you add, Lucy?
It is interesting to hear him say that just because you have an interest doesn't mean that you're in any type of relationship, which is really scary to think that, sometimes men are, when it comes to that stuff, they're naive. They can get into some type of friendly kind of interest together, even at work together. And then all of a sudden, the woman thinks that somehow she's in some kind of relationship, and the guy is like oblivious to it. And there are some women that will create this I don't know, story in their heads that somehow it is a relationship and the guy is oblivious to it, to then find themselves in some weird situation where the woman feels rejected because the guy said, no, this was like a project that we had, nothing else. So again, it's important to understand that, yeah, you got to have those values. You have to have those expectations. You have to have a group of other things, not only the interests, to make it a relationship.
That is so true. And I'm laughing, but it's not funny. I'm going to read a message that came to me. Then I'm going to see what y'all are saying in the chat. I'm not going to share this person's name because she sent this a while back. It says, I have a question, but please don't say my name. Maybe this is one of our Q&As. I said, sure. She says, I have fallen in love with a guy that I don't feel like I could ever trust him, but I'm finding it so hard to detach from him. My situation is so complicated, and I'm feeling so hurt and lost because I know he's seeing other people. I said, I understand. Relationships are so much more than love. You have a decision to make. She said, that's the problem. We aren't in a relationship, but laughing, talking, and spending time with him has made me fall for him deeply. I'm trying so hard to hide it and act like I can move forward without him, but really, I can't. I'm looking at you, Lucy. I said, this is not a good use of your time. You are not in love with him. You are in love with the idea of him. How old are you? Do you have children? If you can't accept if you can't, then accept what you have chosen. The relationship in your head. She says, I miss him so much when I don't see him or talk to him, and I can't go without thinking about him. I'm 50 and my kids are grown. I said, okay, I wish you the best. I cannot help you. Yes. So Lucy was spot on, ladies. Are you in a one-way relationship in your mind? Let's see what you all have said in the chat. I'm telling y'all, like I tell you, we are here until we are not. So when I say this is enough, believe me, we have been through it. All right. Jasmine says, I love that he emphasized that these are spoken expectations. I think we as women can have a lot of unspoken expectations that can get us in trouble later on because the man doesn't know where we stand. Such a good point, ladies. Discipled One says, this is why I focus on self-accountability, for she's not accountable to herself first. She will not be accountable to you. Yes, ladies. I mean, I hate to say it, and it's true. My man said, we have this movie playing in our head. We have this like film that's just going on. It could be the farthest thing from the truth, but we believe it and it is real to us. So ladies, you got to detach yourself from that and see what is actually happening here. Okay. Next level says, many modern women come into relationships only thinking of what they can get, not how they can be an asset. And Jürgen says, men are much more consistent in their interests than women. Yeah, that's true. And I do like that he said that. I think in the section with the shared values, just know what your absolutes are, ladies. You know, another person I talked to, well, he's got to be of this faith. Okay, I respect that. So trying to help her, she finds somebody, she's talking to them. I say, are they of the same faith? No, but I said, I'm going to stop you right there. Don't ever say that they have to be of this faith. Doesn't make you a bad person, but you have to be a woman of your word. And she's young and she's still learning. But I said, if all that matters to you is that they have a relationship with God or whatever you require, you need to say that. But if you say they need to be a hardline ABC 1, 2, 3, and you're dating people who aren't, that makes you lose credibility. All right. Again, I'm going to go howling at the moon. I know someone else that's like, oh, I'm celibate. I'm celibate. I'm celibate. What you do is nobody's business. But if you're doing all this other stuff, except for one thing, I told her, stop saying that you're celibate, because you're not. All right. Men will lose respect for you, ladies, and you are untrustworthy if you just say the things because you think it sounds good, but that's not really who you are. Just be honest. I like to eat. All right. I got to work on that. I know my problem. Okay. All right. So we talked about consistency. Let's see what else. And then we're going to go back in. Thank you, the condemned Venn diagram. Y'all knew what I was talking about. Disciple 1 says she becomes immediately a liability. Oh yeah, y'all see the stuff that, if you only knew. Let's go into number 4.
I mean by that is you got to be able to effectively argue. Now, this is something that a lot of old, unhappy married men tell to young married men, and that is, don't argue with your wife. Just say you're sorry, admit you were wrong, and move on, because happy wife, happy life. Yeah, that's crap. Like, that is absolute garbage advice. Because what they're essentially telling you is to treat your wife like she's some sort of petulant child that has to be managed instead of engaged with. Now, on the other side of this, I talk to some guys that are like, Nick, I'm glad you can have a logical conversation with your wife. I can't have one with mine because she brings up old stuff, or she changes the subject, or she cries, or she gets upset, or whatever it is. To which I usually respond, you didn't figure that out before you married her? Like, that's pretty important, don't you think? My wife and I had conversations long before we were even dating on pretty weighty topics where we would argue back and forth. And one of the things women do when they argue with men is they're trying to figure out, how good of a communicator are you? And how well do you regulate your emotions? Do you get angry? Do you yell? Do you get physically violent? So sometimes if they're pushing you on an issue when you're just friends or dating, it might be to see whether or not you can actually handle and engage in effective communication. By the same token, guys, you've also got to get into those arguments, because if you are dealing with a woman who is incapable of using logic, or who the moment you make a good point instantly shifts the discussion in some way to bring up something from the past or to shift blame or whatever it is, you might be dealing with somebody that you cannot have an effective relationship with. Because I guarantee you this much, you're going to disagree at times. You're going to have some differences of opinion on some pretty important topics. And if you can't actually work through that with the goal of coming to a conclusion that both of you believe is true and worth fighting for, you're going to have issues. But if you haven't established the ability for both of you to engage in effective communication before you get married, you are setting yourself up for failure. Now, there's some guidelines with this, right? I argue with my wife differently than I might argue with one of my buddies, right? She will probably argue with you differently than she would argue maybe with one of her friends. Understand a couple of things about just, generalities between men and women and how we view things. A lot of times my wife will come up to me and start to talk about a particular issue or problem. And for guys, our immediate inclination is usually to try to solve it. I'm going to advise you not to do that, not because problem solving is a bad thing, but because a lot of times when your wife is talking to you, she's not just venting, she's actually going through a whole list of emotions and considerations to try to figure out what exactly irritated her about a particular situation and what a potential solution could be that would also maintain valuable relationships. And so don't just sit there and say, yes, dear, and don't try to fix the problem immediately. Understand that when you sit there and listen and engage and ask questions and go through this process with her, it's something of an investigation. And if you can be a good partner in that investigation, you're actually helping her solve the first problem, which is properly identifying the issue. Once you go through all of that, then a lot of times you'll find that people are open to solutions being offered because they feel like you have properly heard them and that you're now in a position where you might be able to give valuable information that understands all of the potential issues that could be affected by engaging. So it's an important tip for guys to understand, and the earlier you get it, the better off you'll be. Ladies, here's what I'm going to tell you. If you can tell the guy up front, hey, I got an issue I need to talk about with you. I don't need you to solve it right now. I just need you to listen so I can bounce ideas off of you. You're actually putting him in the proper mindset. Believe it or not, he is capable of just kind of listening, supporting, and maybe asking engaging questions to help you figure out exactly what it is that you want to figure out. But it really helps if you put him in the proper mindset. I know sometimes there's this idea of, well, he should just know. There's a lot of things that men and women kind of think the other should just know. Stop thinking that and just verbalize it. Effectively communicate and realize that your spouse wants to help you, that they actually love you, but sometimes they just need to be teed up in the right way in order to have the sort of communication, the sort of conversation, the sort of argument that you want to have. Here's the last thing I'll say about effective communication. An argument between husband and wife should never be about defeating the other one in the argument. It should be about figuring out why there's conflict, figuring out why there's disagreement, and then discovering a pathway to where you are both on the same sheet of music so you can move forward. The goal of an argument between husband and wife is never to defeat your husband or wife. The goal is always to make the marriage stronger. If you can stay focused on that, if you can remember to talk to your wife like they're the person that you love, and ladies, if you can remember to talk to your husband in a way that he finds respectful, then you're probably going to be able to get to a conclusion that both of you can live with. Sometimes the husband's going to be wrong, and it's a good idea to say, you know what, I'm wrong, you're right, let's do it that way. Ladies, same thing applies. You will be shocked if early on in your relationship, you can honestly admit when you might have been wrong, tell the other person they're right, and then go along with it, and not just say, okay, fine, you win, but actually commit to the solution that you've both agreed is better for your marriage. You're going to find that makes all future communication a whole lot easier. All right, here's the main takeaway. If you've never gotten in some sort of substantive argument, I don't mean yelling match, I mean just disagreement that you had to work through, then chances are you probably haven't discussed enough important topics, or you really haven't spent enough time together. Because whenever I see people that are like, oh my gosh, she's so wonderful, we never argue, we never disagree. It's like, really? Like, are you both window dressing? Like, you're honestly telling me that two passionate people don't have any disagreements about anything that could lead to a potential argument? Like, do you really think that's going to be sustained throughout your entire lifetime together? Probably not. So look, it's not a bad thing to have those important discussions about it and topics which may lead to an argument. But if you can't have a meaningful discussion about disagreements, you should see this as a huge red flag. So seek out those discussions, seek out topics. I'm not saying you got to do it on the first date, right? But at some point before you actually say, will you marry me to somebody? Or before you say, I do to somebody, you should ask yourself, have we ever had a topic where we actually had to argue or disagree on something meaningful? Were we able to come to a logical conclusion? Were we able to work together in order to get through it and make ourselves stronger by the end of the discussion? If you haven't done that, you probably need to before you enter into a lifelong commitment with somebody. Part 5, attractiveness.
All right, so let's unpack number 4 before we all get our feelings hurt. But let me start by saying thank you so much to Next Level for the $10. He says, evening, ladies. Loving the discussion. This makes my ride home so much more enjoyable. I had to pay my tithes. Keep casting oil demons. You're so funny. But thank you so much for the support. We appreciate it. All right, ladies, the communication. And look, this is coming from someone who repeatedly got on their report card, talks too much. So I'm going to try and keep my communication brief. Here's your takeaway, ladies. And I have a marriage communication speech that's a bonus for all of our students in the finishing school and all of our classes. If you're listening, it's in your bonus materials. Men and women communicate differently. I love that he was telling men how they can help women without helping, because, you know, sometimes we just want to be heard. But the truth is, ladies, we usually try to explain things as we're speaking. Men are the opposite. They've thought it through. And when they speak, it's basically the decision they have already arrived at. So I love what he said. And I don't have a place to talk to men. So ladies, what he said about, if you don't want the problem solved, say that in the beginning. Just say, hey, you know, I would like to share, you know, something happened at work on the way home with my family or whatever. Not really looking for a solution. You know, is this a good time, you know, to listen? So I would make sure that he is prepared to receive whatever you're giving. If it's just a rant, say that. If you really want him to fix something, say that. But ladies, I would say, make sure you have that your man is in a place where he is, you know, comfortable enough to receive what you got going on. Try to keep it to the point, but not when he comes through the door at the end of his day. Allow him to decompress. You know, I make sure he's not hungry or anything's going on. You know, he's kind of in a relaxed state, and ask first before you just start going in with all the chaos that's in your head. Okay. That's some low hanging fruit that you can do. I love what he said too about any argument, any disagreement is never about I got one, or getting your lick, or defeating that other person. Some of y'all that like to play dirty like that, you can't disagree without being disagreeable. You have to put in one of those little slick attacks, right? You got to bring up something from the past. You got to insult him. You got to, press that button that is a hot button for him. Just stick to the facts. Just say, I don't see it this way. I don't see it that way. These are my thoughts. It is a skill that you can work on, but it's a sign of immaturity, honestly, if you can't just stay on the point and you got to go around it and do all that stuff to put that other person down. And that's how you feel heard. Circling back to what I said in the beginning about the shared values, goals, and expectations. Why did you choose this man? Why did he choose you? Why did you two come together? So even if you disagree about, I don't know, the way, we should spend the holidays, it should never be at the expense of the relationship. You should leave any disagreement, both sides feeling heard and understood. Maybe there's a decision to go either way, but it should make you stronger because you were able to get out your thoughts about what you're passionate about, but in a way that still brings honor to your marriage or your relationship. All right. What would you add, Lucy?
Yeah, and I like that when he said that, when he hears people saying that they haven't had an argument, they don't argue, there's something wrong, because arguments in a relationship, they're healthy, especially at the beginning of a relationship. Then you learn about the way that they take on either a correction or different opinions. And that's where it will allow you to say, yeah, I can get on with this relationship like this. We fight fair. Does she fight fair? Does she start bringing things that happened 15 years ago into a conversation of now? What does that have to do with the entire conversation? Another thing about effective communication with the other part, with my husband, learn what to share and what to make a communication factor, because their brains work so differently. They're always wanting to resolve things. So if you every day come in with a different type of issue that happens at work, that happens with your family, that happens, in his mind is going, so what is it that I'm here to resolve? So again, your husband is not your bestie. I love my husband. I don't know if I can say that he's my best friend, because I don't share those like trivial things that I can share with my sisters or my mom. I really don't, because again, that's not part of our marriage. So when I bring to him something, it's gotta be something that's really that will impact our marriage, our relationship. And, it's just not just to talk. Because again, most men are not talkers. That thing about these women saying we need to be effective communicators. They think that it's like men want to hear us talking all the time. And that's not it. Men want the important information so they can make the decision on how they can help you in the end.
I'm laughing over here because I'm going to tell on myself, then I'm going to come to what y'all are saying in the comments. That ladies, Lucy is right. If it's not relevant to your relationship, you got about this much patience with a man, because he's like, I don't care, and why do you? I had this friend that was a problem child. Y'all all know we got that girlfriend. She can't get herself out of a box. It's always something. And I used to vent, not in a way that was like, can you believe, like, please help me solve this? But it was kind of like, can you believe she's at it again? So I'll never forget the time that I just got off the phone with some ridiculous thing she had done now. And I go to my man and I'm like, just got off the phone with this person. Can you believe? And he said, I got off that psychedelic drug a long time ago. You can keep taking it if you want to. And I was like, y'all, I'm getting in trouble. But I was just like, oh my gosh, meaning he's not trying to hear it. You know, if you want to keep taking 12 laps around the mountain, you can, but they got stuff to do, ladies. They're not here for the foolishness. All right. So if you're going to go down the argument path or bring in that nonsense, just make sure it's relevant. Damone on Instagram says some people are trying so hard to win an argument, they don't even realize it can cost them a relationship. How you argue matters. And like Lucy said, what you argue about matters. All right, let's see what y'all are saying. Jürgen said, I told you so. Y'all like my little request for help over here? Killa says, oh, wow, that lady's comment is why through history, us women have been treated for hysteria. I say this by including myself. Our reality is not real. Ladies, I'm telling you, y'all with the my truth and I just need to be heard and I feel seen. If it is not happening in the real world, be very careful bringing that to a man. Your girlfriends will entertain it, but that right there, no. The Condemned says effective communication is what I learned. Most women of today's top 3 issues in this country. Trying to reason with an unreasonable woman is like attempting to herd cats. Okay, ladies. Can you have a conversation, a heated conversation, and stay reasonable? Discipled One says, ladies, conversations with men are like football, basketball, or soccer. The goalposts are not to be moved. Okay, we understand that, ladies. Men operate in structure. Hello, God bless is here. Let's see what else y'all are saying. Then we're going to go on to his last one. Duran says, I just had this conversation with my wife 2 weeks ago. Yes, ladies. So we had a beautiful lady in our class who she felt convicted by what we were teaching about how she had been treating her husband. So ladies, it's never too late. If you know you have not been fighting fair, you do better. Go apologize. You chose him for a reason. All right. Next Level says, my mind is always to fix it. And I really don't want to hear a bunch of babble. Yeah, I got my feelings hurt that day, y'all. It's always something. Jürgen says, I have repeatedly found that women argue for the sake of arguing. Ladies, is that you? Do you just like to debate? Do you just like to be, up is down, right is wrong? Oh, my goodness. All right. We'll go into his last one. He has 5 tips for us. We'll go into number 5. Are you okay with that, Lucy? And then we'll wrap it up. All right. Disciple said, yeah, mean old mister. I'm always in trouble, y'all. All right.
Does physical attraction matter? Yes, it obviously matters. And ladies, you know it matters. And the reason why we know you know it matters is because you actually do a lot to be physically attractive because you know it matters to guys. Now, here's what I'm going to say right off the bat. Physical attraction matters to both men and women. There's no question on that. However, men can be a little bit more susceptible to letting physical attraction cover up a mountain of red flags. And guys, that's on you, right? You have to be the one that has the intellectual maturity to realize that just because she's hot doesn't mean that's a good match. Ladies, I think you guys are actually a little bit better at this than we are, but by the same token, just because he's hot doesn't mean he's someone that could be a good husband or father. This is why I put so much emphasis on values and common goals and expectations and communication and interests before we ever get to physical attractiveness. I also believe that if you do have a physical attraction to the woman that you marry or to the guy that you're going to marry, developing yourself physically in order to remain attractive for them should not be something that stops when you get married. It should not be something that you do to secure the person and then completely give up on after you're married. I see guys talk about this sometimes where it's like, oh, the dad bod. Dude, the dad bod's not a thing, man. Get to the gym, work out. And ladies, if you wanted to make yourself pretty in order to get his attention, it's not a bad thing to continue to try to do that throughout marriage. By the same token, nobody should have to go through Herculean leaps and bounds of scientific research in order to alter themselves as they get older. Aging with grace is an important thing, and nobody should be putting themselves through something that is unhealthy or dangerous in order to try to chase a youthful look. If you've married for values, if you've married for expectations, if you have interests, if you have effective communication, what you're going to find is that person remains beautiful to you as life goes on. But by the same token, don't deny the fact that the same physical attractiveness that brought you together in the initial part of your dating or courtship is also important when you're married. It's a way of showing love and respect for the other person. I'll put it this way. I don't try to stay in shape to earn my wife's love. I already know I have that. But out of gratitude for that, and out of the fact that I really respect and love that about her, I do try to stay in shape for her. Everything physical ultimately fades. If you've fallen in love with his or her soul, mind, attitude, character, the physical stuff is going to be the easiest part of this. All right, so there's 5 points, but now I'm going to give you.
All right. I don't think there's much to say there, but it's true, ladies. And I love that appearance matters. We all know it's kind of stating the obvious, but I love that he said, out of appreciation for her, I do this. And, all this body positivity and, stuff, you shouldn't, keep yourself up for anybody. You should do it for you. I disagree. Do it for your man. He goes out in the world. He's got everything to look at. Give him something nice to look at when he comes home. Again, he chose you for a reason. And he also said, everything ultimately fades. Ladies, we can age gracefully. Things will shift and move. But if you have all those other shared components, the values, the goals, the expectations, love, respect, communication, all of that he laid out, that is beautiful to a man, ladies. All right. So your character and who you are inside really does matter. And I saw another one come through. So let me say thank you so much, Suave D, for the $5. Sorry I'm late, but great job, ladies. Never late and much appreciated. Thank you so much. Lucy, what would you add?
And sadly for men, when they see a beautiful woman, it's something biological. It's that, what is it that they call it, that male gaze, where they lose sometimes control of everything else and all they see is that beauty. And that's what we love as women, you appreciate that femininity of us. But there are some women that have taken advantage of looking that beautiful to not have anything else about them, not values, not interests, not, communication. So everything else, after they take all that stuff that they put on to look good, what do they have inside? And for men that are looking for a wife or marriage material, they're looking also to what's inside. It's only what's in the outside, because that's kind of like your step into maybe a relationship. What do you have inside that will, get you to that engagement ring or that marriage eventually? So again, men, in a way, we are better when it comes to, not allowing that initial look to be what sells you. We also look for other things. And for young ladies, I think it's a smart way to, when it comes to keeping yourself healthy, the younger you start working out and making yourself fit, the easier it will be when you get to my age, 58. Man, it's hard. Life for women, menopause, it's really hard. It gets to you. So the younger you keep yourself healthier, the easier it's going to be for your body to pay back how you took care of it when you were younger.
Yes, absolutely. And what he said about natural. We could have a whole nother show on that, ladies. But what Lucy said, if you start when you're young, if you're active, if you take care of yourself, just simple things and being consistent, eat well, move your body, take care of your natural skin, your natural hair, it will age, but it won't age as abrasively. A lot of the stuff that we see is when people are doing all kind of crazy things to them, to your body doesn't know what to do with that. And I think you end up looking worse, if not older, than if you would just allow yourself to be naturally beautiful. Take care of what you have. Men, all the men will tell you, they appreciate that natural beauty that Lucy said, they're going to gaze upon. All right, let's see what you all are saying in the chat. Lucy, it sounded like he had a bonus. I don't know if we need to wrap up or do you want to hear the bonus?
The bonus, let's hear the bonus.
All right, so Jurgen says the first thing you know is their appearance, but it's not the only deciding factor. And thank you, Discipled One. All right, let's go in and wrap this up.
You a bonus tip, and this is somewhat controversial, but I stand by it. Don't get physical too early on. And here's why. I have seen guys talk about how hot she was and how much they connect and how sexually compatible they were. And what ended up happening was they got physical very quick And as a result, they chased the physical. The physical became the dominant part of the relationship. And the end result is they didn't ask the important questions about values, about goals and expectations, about interests, about effective communication. They didn't do any of that. They went straight to that person's good looking and I want to bet them. And the next thing you know, they find themselves in a relationship, or even worse, a marriage with kids that they wish they never got into. And at that point, you've made a commitment. If you have kids, you've really made a commitment. So here's all I'm going to tell you. Don't get physical until you're actually getting married. And I know that sounds ridiculous. And I'm not saying you can't hold hands or hug or kiss or things like that, but just keep in mind, the more physical that you get before you're married, the more physical you get before you're actually committed to that person and that person exclusively because you've fallen in love with their character, their mind, their values, etc., the more you are setting yourself up for failure. Guys, you're going to fail because you're going to ignore all of the red flags associated with her ability to communicate with you, or whether or not you actually want to raise kids the same way, or even if she wants to have kids. You're going to assume so much because you were so worried about getting laid. And ladies, here's what I'm going to tell you. If the guy is pressuring you to have sex before he's willing to actually marry you, that's a red flag. And you need to recognize that no matter how great you might think he is, no matter how hot he might be, there is a values misalignment there if that is a condition of him sticking around. Because if he's not willing to stick by you through all of it, then quite frankly, don't give it up to him. Sorry, I know that's a kind of a crass way to put it, but it's important. And here's the other thing I'll tell you, ladies. There's a lot of guys out there that unfortunately are being told that they should be able to go out there and run around and rack up a body count. I'm going to tell you right now that's wrong and they shouldn't do it. And that should be a red flag to you. But here's the other thing. When you do meet a guy that is the sort of guy that you think you could build a family with, a marriage with, if you jump into bed with him or you make it obvious that you're willing to jump into bed with him, that also sends him a signal about what your past might look like. And I'm telling you right now, as much as guys might talk about one thing or another thing when it comes to the physicality of a relationship, they want to know that the woman that they're going to marry is someone that holds that part, their body, their sexuality sacred. And if there's someone that has actually reserved that for their husband, that's a turn on for guys. Not all guys, but definitely the sort of guy that you probably want to build a marriage and a family with. Definitely the sort of guy that you want to have children with. Because that's the sort of guy that has got his own emotions and his own impulses under control and recognizes that if he saves that part, if both of you save that part for the marriage, where it's something that you learn together and experience together, that's two people that really want to be committed. Now, here's the last thing I'm going to say on this. Not everybody has done it that way. Some people have looked back and said, I wish I would have done this differently. I wish I would have done that differently. Is there any hope? And the answer is yes. But you have to set new habits if you want to find somebody that's going to reflect the sort of values where you can create that marriage and family together. So if that it really is something that you regret from your past, then don't make it a part of your present or future. Make a decision to change the way that you're going to do things. In that next relationship you enter into, focus on the values, goals and expectations, the interests, and the communication. And then after you get married, you can focus on the physical. Because as much as people might like to pretend that, oh, this is just so hard to figure out and you want to make sure you're compatible, I can promise you this much. And again, it comes from experience. If you really love and respect that person for all of the reasons that we've already discussed, I could just about promise you that figuring out the physical is not only going to be really easy, but a whole lot of fun when it's in a committed relationship where the two people love each other, not just for how they look, but for how they think and who they really are. So when I list out these things, this is not me as some sort of like wise sage showing you a peer-reviewed study, simply showing you what's worked based off of experience and what many people would consider to be very difficult and unideal situations. But the reason why I say this is because I wanted to give you hope. It is possible. In fact, it's incredibly possible. But it does come with a certain degree of commitment to certain values, certain ideas, and certain steps in that process. I will tell you this, it's nowhere near as hard as it's oftentimes made out to be. But when people get the priorities wrong or they focus on the wrong thing in the wrong order, that's when the trouble starts. But if you can do this, you're going to find that not only is it great for you, but it's going to be great for the person you marry. It's going to be great for the kids that you raise. They're going to grow up in a home where they know mom and dad are committed to one another, love one another, respect one another. And that creates not only a wonderful family environment for you, but it creates all the necessary components to ensure a wonderful family life for your children. You do that enough, and it works a little bit like compound interest. The next thing you know, you're part of a massive family where you can one day look at your grandkids and your great grandkids and think, gosh, this really worked. Not just for you, but for everyone that came after you.
You're muted, Maggie.
Thank you. He gave you all the bonus. There's really nothing much more I need to say to that. I was just saying, do whatever you want to do, but young ladies especially, and I have several that have reached out that are saving themselves for marriage, and I am so proud of you because you're going to have the rest of your lives to explore each other, to have fun together. And believe me, when it is in a committed relationship, marriage, and you know that you have chosen each other for all the right reasons and not the fireworks up front. Like he said, it's not just good for you all, it's good for the whole relationship. And, I just think it trickles down from there. What would you say to, close us out, Lucy?
And ladies, I have actually seen, instances where there are other women saying, yeah, you know what, you may as well get it over with. That when you're young and you're still intact, you haven't had any intimacy. I have seen other women say, you know what, you don't lose anything by just trying it out with, you're still young, you can, have fun and, lose it because, you don't want to get to a relationship where when you're still intact. And I have gotten into arguments saying, no, you do want to get into a relationship while you're still intact. Because again, you want to form that bond as a woman with that one special man. Once you've given it to all of these men, what is there special for this one man that has decided to give you the marriage or has decided to ask you to marry him? So again, it's a modern woman thinking. And for me, I have gotten in some really strong arguments over trying to protect the young women because unfortunately, those that have lost it, they don't care. They want you to lose it too. So, it's kind of like a threat. When you're intact, you're pure. That purity means so much to men. Unfortunately, those other women don't want you to have that purity because it puts them ahead of them.
Ooh, Lucy is talking. I wasn't going to say it, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. Ladies, you're either a virgin or you're not. Now, look, like he said, if you've done things in your past and you want to try and turn things around, you can. But men do value women who are very selective. Men do value even the men who have had experiences, respect and value women who have set themselves apart. So, I know there's a lot of craziness going out here, but young ladies especially, don't feel like you have to rush into anything. There are a lot of women that would trade places with you that regret some of the things that they've done. And not only physically, but mentally, it will haunt them because they just were reckless and careless and you can't get it back. That's what I mean. You're either a virgin or you're not. All right. And so if you're not, you got some explaining to do, and that's between you and whoever you want to talk to about it. But, the men do value that. And yes, I just say we do need to bring modesty back. And I just think that when it's special, when it's not for everyone. And I know young ladies, especially with hookup culture, I have heard the horror. I heard it when the late, great Kevin Samuel said, people are getting together and on like first dates being intimate and then deciding if they love, if they like each other to spend time together afterwards. To me, it's just monstrous. But here's the deal, especially young ladies, a man who is seriously vetting you, he's not going to lead with the sex because that's going to come later. You're going to have the rest of your life. He's going to lead with these other 5 points: values, goals, interests, expectations, communication. Can we, disagree without being disagreeable? All right. So if he's not all hot and heavy, if you know that you're keeping yourself up and you're attracted to him, and you all know when there's that kind of, flirting and that going on, but if you can have some restraint and work out the things that really matter, when your mind is free and you're able to just express yourself and explore, in my opinion, that would be so much better than leading with all these tricks that you're trying to do, hoping that you're going to catch him with, what you learned or what you saw or somebody told you, because there's really not a foundation there. You're just trying to one up the last experience that he had. These are the women that, in my opinion, are just like walking shadows because they just been doing so much. Nothing means anything anymore. All right. So I just wanted to make sure I said that. Prince is saying that, yeah, the liberation has ruined the purity and chivalry. There's still some out here. They're quiet, but they are out here. Gillis is saying, when we are young, the mindset is so horrible. I remember being embarrassed to still be intact. All of your friends experienced it and you didn't. Oh, thank you so much, Prince. Well, I didn't get to all of the comments, but I just want to say thank you all so much. I know we went a little bit long today. Thank you, Next Level. Suave D for coming through, Discipled One for all of the support. So Lucy and I will be back. We're with you all twice a week. We like to give you these points from older women's perspective. So yeah, we will be back Wednesday at 9 p.m. I think Lucy's got us lined up with a couple more to react to. So thank you all so much for being here. And until then, we will say adios.